Good morning everyone and welcome to shared reading for Thursday the 2nd of April. We're continuing with our text, My Two Blankets, today. And our learning intention is the same. So we're learning to understand the text we're reading. And we have been focusing on making predictions. So we've been making predictions before we read. And then as we read, using our knowledge, images, the title, the author, the blurb, and the recommendation. We've also been modifying our predictions as we read and making new predictions as we read. We looked at making connections, text to text, text to world, text to self. And today we're going to introduce inferring, the comprehension strategy of inferring as well, which we have touched on a little bit this week too. Just recapping making connections. So these are some of the connections that I made as I was reading yesterday. I made a text to self connection to Cartwheel. Cartwheel is feeling displaced, lost, afraid, and lonely. I felt like that when I was 10 years old and I moved to Brunei. I didn't understand the language. I was in a foreign place and I felt a sense of cultural displacement or culture shock as I was so unfamiliar with this new, strange, and weird place. I then also made a text to world and a text to text connection. And I'm still making this connection as I'm reading, because the more that I read My Two Blankets, the more I'm reminded of An Do. And An Do was a refugee who travelled from Vietnam to Australia by boat. He's written a lot of children's books. I think it's the Weirdo series he's written. So you probably read some of his books already. And he's actually a comedian. So he wrote The Happiest Refugee, and then he wrote a children's version of that, The Littlest Refugee. And it also reminds me of a live show. So I've actually seen his comedy show, The Happiest Refugee. And he describes feelings about not knowing how he belongs or how he belonged when he arrived in Australia. So very similar feelings to what Cartwheel was feeling as well. Today we're focusing on inferring. Now I know that when you're inferring, now we've got 4 different anchor charts here. We'll include this slide on our everyday slides as well to help you. When we're inferring, we know that it's looking at information from a text plus our background knowledge to infer. So we're figuring out something about the text that the author did not tell you. So we're using clues to be a detective. So we're using what we know and we're using what's in the text to figure out something about the text that the author did not tell you. And these are some ways that you can start your sentences. So when you're inferring, you can start with this could mean, I think, I infer, it could be that, perhaps, I know that, and maybe. And we always use because in there as well, because we need to be thinking about it and we need to be explaining it a little bit more. I'm not going to go through all these posters because they're there for you to have a look at, and we'll put them on the slides for you too. This one here is about figuring out something that wasn't completely explained in the story, which is exactly what inferring is as well. So you're using what you know to figure out something that wasn't explained in the story.